Okay, again, playing with the intro. Good morning, and welcome to Brewing Happiness. Grab you a cup of your favorite brew, some coffee, some tea, some hot water with lemon, doesn't matter. Let's just have a little chat this morning. Today, trust me, we are talking about trust. Trust me. Trust is kind of an element of every relationship, of our relationship with ourselves, with the divine, with every single person that we know. And so we know that it's important and that it is a part of our lives. And so I thought we'd talk this morning a little bit about facts about trust, a little bit about trust. Trust can be a noun or a verb. A noun, it's a firm belief in the reliability, the truth, the ability of someone or something. Relationships are built on trust. Or it's a verb. You believe in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. I should never have trusted her. Right. We all know what it is. We know what trust is. We know when we have it. We know when we don't. But how do we know? How do we know what's happening? Well, as always, we like to know, I do. I like to know the science, what's going on in our brain. So I looked up the neuroscience of trust. And here's what we found. In many ways, we are hardwired to trust one another, right? Experiments around the world have shown that humans were just naturally inclined to trust, even though we don't always, right? But because we are hardwired to trust, having your trust betrayed, boy, it can short circuit your neurobiology, and it can make it even more difficult to trust again. So in a study, a team of researchers learned about the motivation of trust, especially during times of risk, right? So this study was designed to find the neurological signal that happens when we meet someone that says, should we trust them or not? So in rodents, they found out that the joy chemical oxytocin was shown to signal if another animal was safe to approach. So scientists thought, let's check to see if this is true in humans too. And so a study was designed. Participants chose an amount of money that they were going to send a stranger, and they knew the money would triple, but what they didn't know was how the recipient would respond. The recipient could keep all the money, could send back all the money, could share some of the money, right? It was up to them. So in this test, we want to find out, or this is a test of trustworthiness, right? And oxytocin levels, we're testing for oxytocin, the joy chemical here, right? Interesting that the chemical that's related to joy is also the chemical related to trust. Think about that for a minute, right? That's a kind of an important important factoid. Anyway, in this test, oxytocin levels were measured. Like literally took a needle in the arm, pulled out some blood, measured before and immediately after they made the decision to trust others, if they were the sender, or whether to be trustworthy if they were the receiver. The folks played both sides of this coin, right? And the participants did not know what the study was testing. So they were trying to keep it blind so that this was not impacting their decisions, right? What they found out was the more money people received, when that would mean that people were trusting them, right? A greater trust on the part of the sender because they were the recipient. They found the more people trusted them, the more oxytocin was produced. So being trustworthy, it's a joy, right? And then the amount of oxytocin, then they found out that the amount of oxytocin that participants produced, predicted just how trustworthy or how likely they were to share the money. Correlation, right? So to take the study further and to prove not just correlation, but causation. They were saying correlation does not equal causation, meaning that just because two things rise or fall together doesn't mean that one is causing the other. But these guys went even further because they wanted to show that it was causing, not just a coincidence, right? Not a correlated comparison, but comparing those. So they injected the people with synthetic oxytocin. Yes, that's right. You can fit oxytocin to, Anyway, so they gave them a little bit of fake oxytocin, and then they compared those who received the shot of oxytocin versus those who just got a placebo, right? The ones that received the oxytocin more than doubled the money they sent to the stranger, right? And they went on further to show that they weren't cognitively impaired and they weren't making rash decisions in a gambling task or a gambling game that they also did, right? So they're kind of finding out that oxytocin did just one thing. It reduced the fear of trusting a stranger. So trust and joy linked. Now, another study was published in the Journal of Neuroscience, Computational Substrates of Social Value in Interpersonal Collaborations. Name of the study. Okay, participants in this study were under the illusion that they were playing in an economic investment game, right? With 3 different players. One was a close friend, one was a stranger, one was a computer. Just a computerized slot machine. In reality, they were always playing against a computer. They just didn't know it. And this computer was set an algorithm to reward them 50% of the time, to reciprocate trustworthiness 50% of the time, right? So no matter who they thought they were playing with, the results were the same based on the confines of the study. But the participants reported they really had positive interactions and they really trusted the close friend. And those interactions were more rewarding than the interactions with either the stranger or the slot machine. We want to trust, right? We want to assume the trust of those we like. We have an innate human desire to connect with others and to create close-knit bonds. The act of trusting, right, is a process, and sometimes it happens immediately. And in our brains, things are happening. Our brain is evaluating, predicting, taking past experiences and evaluating all of this and predicting how someone's going to behave. That's how we decide to trust or not, right? What can happen, though, what they found in this experiment is blind trust. Because you think someone's a friend, you automatically trust them. This is how Ponzi schemes are made, right? We sometimes are too trusting. We automatically correlate someone's affability or kindness with trustworthiness. So we'll beware here, right? Brain imaging of these participants now showed that 2 brain regions were engaged when they thought they were trusting a friend. Remember, it didn't matter who they were talking to. They were talking to the same guy. But when they thought they were talking to a friend, they had increased activity in the ventral striatum and our old friend, the medial prefrontal cortex. And these were both correlated with the positive social value signals, right? When they made decisions based on the belief that they were playing with a friend. All right, it's a coffee show, right? I get to have a drink of coffee. Okay, so the ventral striatum, key pathway to the human reward processing system and our positive emotions. So that's engaged. Positive emotions, reward system when we're talking about trust. Then secondly, in fact, a study from the University of Wisconsin found a correlation between savoring positive emotions and the sustained activity of the ventral striatum, right? So that's where we enjoy our positive emotions. This is where we feel them, right? Now, the medial prefrontal cortex is associated with how we think about other people, how we perceive their mental state, how we monitor, kind of what's going on. Again, this is our brain instantaneously and unconsciously evaluating, pulling in our experiences, our memories, what we know in the world, the context of the situation, and predicting what's going to happen. This is all happening in, I'll say the blink of an eye, but I'll bet you it happens faster than that. And so what we find is, the prefrontal, the medial prefrontal cortex also plays a role in decision making and memory retrieval and consolidation. So, interestingly enough, memory retrieval, decision making, and positive emotions. Those parts of the brains that control those things are the things that are actively engaged when we trust, when we are perceived as trustworthy, or we are trusting someone else. So the participants felt a greater reward in the brain reward, right? When they thought their good friend had reciprocated during the game. They didn't care when the computer did it or the stranger did it, they didn't have the same responses, right? Because these feelings of trust were in spite of reality. Because in reality, the game was the same. You played 3 times, 3 different players. It was all the same, but they had strong feelings about the person they perceived as a friend. The feelings of trust were in spite of reality, right? All three games gave them the same result. Everybody responded 50% of the time, but we liked it better. We trusted it more when it was our friend, right? So the study kind of shows us the underlying social value of trust, right? And it's important to our lives. Trust of others is built into our DNA. Working together, it's a key to survival. That's how we survived as a species, right? We learned to work together, and working together by design requires trusting one another. But it also shows, yes, we need to trust. Yes, we automatically trust. But, by the way, can't always trust your trust signals is what it's saying, right? We can be fooled in just trusting someone who's perceived as a good friend, even when that friend's a computer algorithm. Doesn't matter. That's why when you are betrayed by someone that you do care about or that you do trust, why it is such a gut wrencher. The vulnerability, the gullibility, right, that blind trust generates has been challenged. Our wanting to trust someone has deep neurobiological roots. It's built into our system. But genuine trust, now that has to be earned, right? That's different than this brain reward. I can trust you. You got a nice smile. I can trust you. This is where we got to be careful. So why is trust so important? Who cares, right? Why is the trust so important? Well, like I said, we want to trust. Our brains are hardwired to trust. Trust creates psychological safety. The ability to be yourself, right? Without fear how people are going to respond, or means you're not afraid to speak up or speak your truths, that you say what you want. You can say what you want without risking losing someone's love, right? So trust brings you some safety. It encourages questioning and risk-taking, right? And innovation is about stepping outside the bounds of the norm. If you're afraid of saying something crazy or out of sync or bigger than the group's current mentality, you might not say it. You might miss out on opportunities to solve the problem. If you don't feel trusted, you're not offering up an out-of-the-box solution. If you don't feel trusted, you're not going to ask questions. You're not going to make suggestions. You're going to feel like, not sure how this is going to be received. So you may end up just staying quiet. So trust encourages fast decisions. Like I said, these things are going on all the time. If I got to stop and think about, do I trust you? Every decision takes a long time. If I got to pick apart every decision and look, but these things are happening instantaneously. When I trust you, you say something, yes, let's move. Improves communications, right? Again, don't have to unpack what you said. I'm just going to take it because I trust you. You trust me, right? You come here and watch the show. You're trusting that the information, I could read to you any kind of bullshit I wanted to, right? Why not? But you trust me that I'm doing my homework. I'm doing my research, that the information I'm bringing to the table, not just fun, interesting, but true. Excuse me, because you trust me. I hope. Anyway, trust promotes self-confidence, right? When others trust you, getting some oxytocin, first of all, a little joy. But you're feeling confidence in yourself, right? When others affirm you and acknowledge you and trust you, it gives you confidence in yourself. It helps you take risks and express creativity, helps you participate in creative problem solving. And trust, well, obviously, meaningful connections. You can't have a nice relationship with someone you don't trust. It's the backbone of any healthy relationship, a romantic relationship, a friend relationship, a family relationship, a work relationship. It doesn't matter. Trust is the backbone. And without that trust, relationships are hard, right? Trust, it helps us make connections, human connections, because the journey to trust is shared experiences, right? This is building a bond, a closeness, a friendship, shared experiences. And also trust reduces stress. Lack of trust is emotionally exhausting. It's like walking through a minefield. You're unsure of anything that what you say or do might come back to bite you, might be used against you. Trust leaves you relaxed and safe. And personally, for me, I was in a relationship for a very long time, a very long marriage that slowly lost trust, or there was a super lack of trust, I should say. When you don't trust that the other person has your best interest at heart, when you don't trust that your confidences will be kept confident, or that things that you say in moments of vulnerability and sharing won't later come back to be used against you. When those things are taken away, you're walking on eggshells all the time. Sometimes you're not sure if your response is going to elicit a reaction that you don't want or don't like, right? It's exhausting. It took 10 years to recover from that lack of trust. Still working on it. So losing trust is indeed I'm hoping you see me. You're not seeing this. Okay, no, you're right. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I had a little momentary pad. Okay, so how do we build trust? How do we get trust? Right? When trust is broken, again, it can take a very long time to trust again. We may never trust the person who betrayed us, but that betrayal can have impacts bigger than that one relationship, right? You may have trouble trusting other people once one person has betrayed you. So some thoughts on building or rebuilding trust, right? Be true to your word. Follow through on what you say. That's the number one thing, right? The point of building trust is for others to believe you. That what you say can be taken to heart and counted on, right? Building trust requires not only that you keep the promises that you make, but that you don't make promises that you can't keep, right? You keep your word when others that you keep your word. You'll be there when you say you're going to be there. You'll do what you say you're going to do. That's how we're going to build trust. You build trust through effective communication, right? Poor communication is, I'm going to say, kind of why most relationships break down. Good communication includes clear, straightforward truth. Again, not saying things you don't intend to follow through on. Building trust is not without risk. It involves everybody taking some risk. You have to risk that what I'm saying is true. I have to risk that you're going to hear what I actually said and not interpret it differently and react differently. Without it, boy, communication is hard, right? And it takes time to build and earn trust. It doesn't happen. True trust, like I said, we may have feelings of trust right away. The brain study shows that we may have feelings of trust right away just because we like somebody, just because they're affable and have a nice smile, just because we feel like they have our best interest at heart. But building trust is a daily commitment. It's the results of actions and words and follow-ups, and right. Don't expect too much too soon. Small steps to build trust, right? You build on the small steps. Put the trust in, you trust, put the trust in and truth, and you generally get back your trust in the time. Again, we know we can be fooled. We know from the brain study that it's easy to be fooled into trusting. So how do you avoid that? Well, you take your time. You think things through, right? You only make commitments you're happy to agree to. You feel that thing in your gut that starts swirling, have the courage to say, no, this isn't for me. Even if it's going to disappoint someone, to be true to yourself, then they know who you are, and they know that they can trust you because you didn't go, oh, sure, I'm happy to help with that, when you're not, right? Be clear about what's on your plate, what else is going on. You can say, no, this isn't for me. Being organized, kind of part of building trust, right? You got to know where you are, what you can do, what you can't do, whether you can agree to it, whether to commit, right? And then trust, well, you already have it, right? In the relationships that you do have close bonds with, those close bonds are based on trust. I trust that you love me. I trust that you only want what's best for me. I trust that each time we have an exchange, we are both approaching it with the best of intentions for each other. So those relationships that you try again. So those relationships you already do have, value those. Be aware of that trust. Honor that trust, both the trustworthiness that you give and the trustworthiness you receive and the trust that you give. Regularly, showing somebody that you're there for them. That's how you build trust, right? Be part of the team. Do your share. Be open and willing to make contributions. Take feedback. Take what others say into consideration. Actively listen. Suggest your thoughts and feelings in a respectful way, and demonstrate you're part of the team. Always be honest. This is the message this is the bottom line of trust, right? Always be honest. Easier said than done. However, and sometimes being honest is hard. Sometimes being honest means sharing things that other people don't want to hear or you don't want to say, right? But if you blow smoke, if you hide two things can happen. One, you won't be trusted when it comes clear that you were just making that up to avoid conflict or confusion. Secondly is the stress you're causing yourself when you're stuffing down your own reality and your own truths and putting that aside because you're afraid of somebody else's negative reaction, right? That's all this is going on here. Trust yourself. That the relationship is strong enough to withstand your saying no thank you to a request. And if it's not, maybe a reevaluation of that relationship, right? Always be honest. I find a little side note, pro tip, as I like to call them, when you have to have a hard conversation, when you have to say something that's difficult, 2 words I always go to: respectful and kind. You can say your truths if you say them respectfully and kindly. If you take a moment before the conversation to put yourself in the other person's position, imagine it's you who's going to be receiving this bad news. Maybe it's poor performance review, right? Maybe it's you did something to hurt someone else's feelings. We all make mistakes. Imagine if you were the person on the receiving end of the difficult conversation you're about to have. How would you like to receive this news? What's the kindest and most respectful way that you could receive this news? And then you offer that to the person. Respectful and kind, but the truth. One more way to build trust is helping people whenever you can, right? You want your friends to be there when you need them. You want to be able to call somebody up and have them show up when you have a moment. You want somebody to be at the other end of the phone, to be there when you're having that day and you just need a little bit of cheering up. So that means you've got to be that person too. You have to be there in order for them to be there for you. Authentic kindness builds trust. And don't hide your feelings. Okay, again, honesty. These are all, I could have put all these bullets under one thing. Be honest, right? Always be honest. Don't hide your feelings. Again, respectful and kind, but honest. You know, that sounds great. And I love that, but I don't think that's right for me, right? I'd love to come over and help in your volunteer event, but I have 3 things already scheduled this week, and I'm going to need Saturday to recover. I just don't think I can stretch myself that thin. Respectful and kind. And don't always self-promote, right? An important part in building trust and maintaining good relationships is just recognizing others, making sure that it's not always about you. Really being there, right? The definition of love. Really being present with another person. Really honoring and offering them your attention, your listening skills, your appreciation and acknowledgement when they have done something, admirable. So, bottom line is trust. Always do what's right. I mean, this is the simplest information ever, right? Be honest and do what's right. Doing something for approval means if you're just doing something just to have approval of the group or the approval of someone, that means somewhere you're sacrificing your own truth. You're sacrificing your own value. You're not trusting yourself, right? And to build trust with yourself, you got to be willing to upset others on occasion, right? People may not trust someone who only says what they think you want to hear, right? If you never disagree, if you never express an opinion, if you never challenge anything, I'm going to start questioning. Go along to get along. I'm not sure I trust that you really agree with me at this time. So, truthful, admit your mistakes, right? Admit your mistakes, be honest, be respectful and kind. And when you hide your mistakes, right? When you try to deflect, people know you're being dishonest. Everybody knows we all make mistakes. We're all vulnerable. Sharing this side helps to build trust because people then see you as more like them. We all make mistakes. There is no one perfect. Someone who presents themselves as always perfect, never having a problem, never having a down day or whatever. You don't trust that because it's not reality, and you know that, right? But when you are vulnerable, when you say, not my best, sorry, they know that you can be trusted because you don't mind admitting you're the one at fault. And this leads us to the final thoughts of the day, which is about self-trust. Because at the end of the day, at the bottom line, how many cliches can I work into this sentence? At the end of the day, at the bottom line, it's all about trusting yourself. As soon as you trust yourself, you will know how to live. Somebody named Fakri said that in 2016. Self-trust allows you to protect your own needs and safety. It allows you to have faith that you can make it through difficult times, right? Through difficult challenges. Self-trust allows you to offer all those things we just talked about to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be respectful of yourself. Self-trust really allows you to practice kindness toward yourself and not have that, that perfection thing going on. Like you have to require perfection of yourself. Self-trust gives you an awareness, right, of your feelings, your thoughts, and your ability to express them. I mean, to have self-trust, you have to be honest with yourself, right? You have to honor your own emotions, and you have to avoid relying too much on the opinions of others. If you're making decisions based on the opinions of others, all the time not trusting yourself, right? It's acquired, and you get self-trust. You get you some self-trust. It's acquired by nurturing your deepest thoughts, by going where maybe you have veered off and avoided before, right? By shining a light and honestly observing the parts of ourselves that we both love and admire and not so much would like to change, right? It requires you to live by your own standards, your own values, your own ethics. Good morning, Debbie. Well, we're talking trust this morning and self-trust. Self-trust means knowing when to put your own needs first, right? Knowing when you need to say, no, I'm overextended. I need some time. And self-trust means knowing it's okay to make a mistake. You can endure a screw up, right? A setback, a failure. You're going to be okay. Self-trust means you know that you've recovered from things like this in the past and you can do it this time again. Self-trust allows you to pursue what you want, right? Again, if I'm putting my trust in the opinion of others and kind of squishing my own thoughts, I'm going somewhere that is not my own path. So self-trust allows you to feel the things you need to feel to understand what is your passion, what is your purpose, what are the things you want to pursue, what is your pursuit of happiness, and to do that even if maybe not the choice of others around you. So, one more thing you can do for yourself, avoid surrounding yourself with people who undermine your self-trust. I mean, okay, sometimes it's your family and you can't do anything about it, right? But be aware who when someone is using you, right? Not really caring about what's best for you. We get to choose who we let in, who we allow to truly see our vulnerable side, who we really share with. Those are the people that we trust. And maybe, well, and for sure, it's not everyone, right? You get to decide. And self-trust means you're honest about who is your friend and who is someone who promotes you and builds on you or is just kind of one of those folks who we feel friendly towards and therefore feel the need to automatically trust, where maybe we've got to do a little more discernment than that, right? Maybe we need to dig a little deeper into what's really going on, because we tend to trust those we like immediately. All right. The biggest thing about self-trust is keeping promises you made to yourself, right? Honoring the commitments you make, following your dreams, pursuing your goals, engaging in self-development, whatever it is, it's important that you make and keep those promises to yourself. Because if you let yourself down, you learn that you can't trust yourself, then anything you decide just flies out the window, because immediately it's followed by I'm not going to do that anyway. Trust yourself. It's important to make and keep the promises you make to yourself. To create boundaries, right? To go to bed earlier, to be mindful of your health, to eat healthier, to exercise, all to not hang out with people who you don't trust or who constantly undermine you. This is setting your boundaries for yourself. This is you're trusting yourself enough to set boundaries, again, that may not be the choice of others around you. Self-trust means understanding my own values, my own truths, my own ethics, my own beliefs, enough to stick by them, even if it doesn't make me the most popular person. Right? That's what trust is. So, building self-trust really just is about becoming your own best friend. So, final thoughts on this, right? Trust relationships. We are hardwired to trust. It was part of the key to our survival as human beings, to foster cooperation and community and trust one another and learn to rely on one another. However, studies show that trust, the feelings of trust, the brain science of your trust links it to your joy centers, to your emotion centers, to your decision-making centers, right? Makes perfect sense. But we also know you can be fooled. Your brain wants to trust. We want to trust. And everything we talk about trust can be related not only to the relationships in your life, but your relationship with yourself and your relationship with God, right? Trust, faith. What's faith? Faith is just trust. So how are you going to do this? Finally, trust yourself. Speak kindly to yourself, right? Avoid that harsh inner critic. That's not the truth. That's just trouble. That may be the voice of a parent or a teacher or someone in your past that somehow has worked its way into that little inner critic, that little voice inside of you. You don't have to listen to that. Learn to avoid, ignore that inner critic by being kind to yourself. Listen, honestly assess. I'm not saying you should never be critical of yourself or you should never make assessments, right? But be kind. Do it in a way that you can filter through what's remnants of old history and maybe a memory and versus what's true based on the facts of your actions and behaviors. Have faith in your capacity to overcome failure. Have faith that you have done so much so far. All the setbacks that are ahead of you. Because trust me, if you try anything, there's going to be setbacks. If you're attempting anything, there's going to be failure. There's going to be difficult days, right? There's going to be days when you don't feel like it. Have faith in your ability to overcome that, right? You've done it in the past. You got to connect with your own emotional well-being. Pay attention to any disturbance in the force. Pay attention. Check in with yourself. How am I doing? How's my trust factor with myself? Am I being true to myself? Am I keeping my promises to myself? There's really no way to be happy when you're not. You don't get to fool yourself, right? There's really no path to happiness living in a make-believe world or living in the world of always trying to please everyone around you and not yourself. No happiness in that path. So that's our show for today. Trust. Trust is a word that, again, the thing to remember is we want to trust. We're hardwired to trust. Trusting feels good because it's oxytocin is released just like in joy, just like in happiness. Same area of the brain is activated, right? So it's up to you to bring some discernment to that, to look at the facts. What do they say? Trust but verify. Absolutely is the way to go. Trust, but check in with the facts just to make sure your oxytocin levels haven't messed with your ability or with your willingness to trust. Mixed signals today. Trust but verify. Trust but be careful. Trust is important, but we got to manage it. Anyway, that's our show for today. Oh my gosh, 38 minutes. I knew it was going to be long today. I had a lot to say. That's all right. Until tomorrow, make it a happy day.